are live here on the Extra Points podcast with the College Football Experience. My name is Gus, and this is my brother-in-law, Will. Will, how are you doing on this great Saturday evening?
What's up, man? I'm happy to be here, dude. I'm glad we're finally doing this.
Dude, this has been a long time coming, hasn't it, man? This has been a thing we've been having on our minds since college, a pretty
About
long
five,
time.
5 or 6 years, we've been discussing just going to see football stadiums, and it's
Yeah.
kind of turned into this.
Yeah, just turned into where, man, we just love college football so much and we just love to talk about it. So we're here. So this is the Extra Points podcast where we just break down everything that's going on in college football, our opinions of it, and it goes along with our YouTube channel, The College Football Experience, where this fall we'll be going to multiple campuses all across the country and just getting to experience those and bring those to you in a way we think that is awesome and we think that you're really going to love it. So man, I'm just excited. So do you want to jump into what our plans are going to be for the season and the places that we're going to go?
Yeah, so this is the first place we discussed was we've been discussing this place for a long time, and we've
A
been wanting to go
very
here
long time.
forever. And our first place we're going to go to is Ohio State.
Oh,
When Penn State comes rolling into town.
the biggest home game of the season for the Buckeyes. It's going to be a ball. And it's what we're going to do to kick off our tour. The Ohio State University, man. And just like you said, since the inception of this idea, it's the first place we've wanted to go. For years, we've talked about we got to go to Ohio State because us living in the South, it's it kind of has a mystique about it because it's the Ohio State, man, and they're basically an SEC
Yeah,
team that's not in the South. So we've always heard about
well,
it, and we're finally going to get to go and get to experience it.
I think it wasn't until this January that a lot of or December that a lot of teams started respecting Ohio State.
Yeah, yeah, because they finally tested the Bulldogs, man,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and I just want to see like what makes Columbus, Ohio, and that university so special because it has such a massive fan base, and like we said, there's just so much that surrounding it. But do you think the shoe's gonna hold up to some of the SEC venues that we've been to, man? Because it's got what like 102,000 fans. That's a
I
lot.
I don't know. We went to the swamp last year. We got
Swamp
to
was wild.
experience that, and we stood up the whole game. I mean, we didn't
And
sit
it
down
was
and
loud,
yeah, and it
and
was
we have been to
loud.
some loud games, and
Yeah,
it
and it we didn't stop screaming. And I'm ready to see if Ohio State's going to be very similar, especially their biggest game, of the season to that point. So
see,
I'm
I
ready to
think
go,
it's
man.
I think it's gonna be one of the craziest atmospheres we've ever seen because this program just has such a big chip on their shoulder with how the last 2 seasons have ended for them, and this is a must-win. This is gonna be a must-win game for them. Like, it is going to be a big game. So I'm excited about that. And the next game that we're going down to the Bayou, man, to see your Florida Gators. We're going down to see your Florida Gators versus the Bayou Bengals, the LSU Tigers. We're hoping this game's at night, man. We're really
Yes.
hoping this game is at night. And it's our second 100,000 seat stadium of the year. Best atmosphere in college football, in my opinion.
I've already been warned, don't wear my Gator gear, but I can't.
Dude,
I mean, if I'm going to
I
see a Florida game, I got to
you
wear
ha-
my
you
stuff, man.
you have to wear your stuff. And I am not even a Florida fan, and I'm gonna wear a Florida shirt because this sounds kind of weird, but I want to see what it's like. Like, I want the experience of an opposing fan going into Death Valley at night. Man, I
But
just
see,
want to experience that.
I think to fully experience it, it has to be a night game
Yeah, I mean,
because they're just
we're
on another
going
level.
we're going either way, but I'm praying that
Yeah.
it's a night game because all of those students, all of those fans, they like to drink down on the bayou and they get liquored up. And it's just something like it just has that electric atmosphere to it that it even comes through the TV. And if it's coming through the TV, I cannot imagine what it's like to actually be there. Do you think they'll play neck? Do you think the band will play neck? Because if we're going down to LSU and I don't hear the band play neck, I'm gonna be kind of disappointed.
Depends on how it's going in the fourth quarter. And it might be going well for them, so it might be getting played.
I just hope it's a good game and we get to experience the full atmosphere that is Baton Rouge. And the real Death Valley Clemson fans, I'm looking at you. It is the real Death Valley until I am told otherwise. Next, our final game of the season. Tell them where we're going.
We are going to the Iron Bowl, and this is the one I'm most excited for, probably out of the three of them.
Because haven't been, haven't you?
I've been to one Iron Bowl as a kid, but I haven't experienced it like in a while. And I just know Jordan Hare is a different beast when it comes to the Iron Bowl.
Dude, it might not be the biggest stadium. I think max when you squeeze everyone in there, I think it's about 89, a little over 89,000. But I mean that place, it's just special. And me growing up as an Auburn fan, I was at the Kick Six. I was at when we won in 2019 when Mac Jones threw the 2 pick sixes. And I mean, those are some of the loudest games that I've ever been to. And I think it'll hold up, and I think you're really going to love it. I really, really think that you're going to love it.
I think so too, man. I hope it's probably gonna be a 3:30 game. I hope it'll get dark, so we'll get to see the orange lights, and we'll get to see Auburn. It's a special place. It's really underrated around the country unless you're just from the Southeast. It doesn't get the respect it deserves, but it's definitely that game is different. And the way Auburn's been picking up some transfer portal guys, it might be
talent.
It might be a competitive game.
Dude, and do you know Nick Saban has never beat a 9-win Auburn team or like a 9-win plus Auburn team in Jordan-Hare Stadium? He has failed to do it. So if Hugh Freeze and Auburn just have a phenomenal season this year and blow everything out of proportions and just do great, I don't think Bama's coming in there. That isn't a prediction, but
I will say this: I've never rolled Toomer's Corner.
Dude, that was exactly what I was about to say. I hope that you and our friend Cody, shout out Cody, I hope you and Cody get to roll Toomer's Corner and we get that on video camera. Because, dude, wouldn't that just be the ultimate culmination to a video? Slowly fade to black as toilet papers roll in those oaks on Toomer's Corner. That would just be absolutely beautiful. And I really hope that y'all get to experience that after an Iron Bowl win. All right.
I hope so too, man.
Dude, I mean, I am just jacked, and I'm really excited that we're finally able to make this dream a reality, because a bunch of people don't get to do that, man. And I just think we're extremely blessed to be able to do that.
Very fortunate, man. I'm excited.
Yeah. All right. Jumping on to our next segment, teams we want to see make the jump in 2023. And by teams we want to see make the jump, those are just teams going into the last 2 weeks of the season, conference championship weekend, teams that haven't necessarily been there, but we want to see them get there and be in playoff contention, man. Have hope, have serious life at the end of the season. And the first team, man, is the Texas Longhorns. Tell me what you think about them, Will.
They finished the 2022 season 8-5. They had an up and down year. It started out, pretty good, especially for the first half of that Alabama game. They were 54th in total defense, 35th in total offense. But, when Quinn Ewers got hurt, that kind of derailed the season, because I think that was something that
hurt him just a little bit. Yeah.
I think that kind of stuck with him throughout the year. And, but I will say this, they got the 3rd ranked recruiting class in the 2023.
They have been recruiting their butts off.
We all know they got Arch Manning. They got a guy that not a lot of people probably know about if you don't follow recruiting, but a kid named Cedric Baxter. Remember that name?
He's a baller running back. Absolute stud.
And everybody knows the transfer A.D. Mitchell from Georgia.
Caught the winning touchdown in 2021 in the national championship game. Caught what ended up being the winning touchdown against Ohio State in the Peach Bowl last year. Yeah, man. And not only are they getting A.D. Mitchell back at wide receiver, they already have Xavier Howard, who is an absolute stud, but they're getting Isaiah Neyor back to transfer from Wyoming that they lost last season in fall camp, torn ACL, I believe. So they are loaded at wide receiver. They have what I think is a first-round talent at quarterback. And though they do have Arch Manning waiting in the wings, I think they're going to have Malik Murphy as their backup. So if Quinn Ewers doesn't perform up to expectations or he does get hurt, I think they have a very solid quarterback backup that was getting interest, probably being tampered with for all we know, to come to other schools like Florida, like Auburn, teams that really you know what I'm talking about. Teams that needed a quarterback, but he chose to be loyal, chose to stay at Texas. They probably paid him a good amount, knowing that old money that they have. They probably paid him a good amount to stay, and I think he probably made the right decision to stay. And
you know how they can make that jump though is if you notice last year, dude, they had 5 games that were one possession games that they lost.
Dude, and 2 of those were at home, 1 to Bama, 1 to TCU kind of late in the year. So if they're able to really just clutch up really and be able to defend home turf, I think that'll be a really big deal for them. And I think you were telling me earlier that Sark has always had a 1,000-yard rusher as a head coach.
Yeah, so I saw an interview with him. It was like with Fred Taylor and all them on YouTube, and he was talking about every year he's been a head coach, he's had a 1,000-yard rusher. So they've lost.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, and they've lost Bijan Robinson to the draft. He got drafted by the Falcons. So let's see if they get that 1,000-yard rusher this year, or will it be a room by committee, you know?
I really think it's going to be a running back room by committee, but I'm really excited for what Texas is going to be able to do in 2023. Another team that I'm really excited about what they're going to do in 2023, man, is the Penn State Nittany Lions. They've been so close. They were so close last year. They went 10-2 last year, man. They were so close. They're in what I think is probably the second toughest division in football. I know we've had conversations about this.
Arguments.
But yeah, we have gotten pretty heated about this, but I think that they're in the second hardest division. They have to play Michigan. They have to play Ohio State. They get Michigan at home this year, man. But it's just felt like they've had a glass ceiling on them since 2016 when they were able to get to the Big Ten championship game, and they still didn't make the playoffs that year. They kind of got screwed. Tell me what you think about Penn State coming into this year.
Well, I mean, have they closed the gap between Michigan and Ohio State? I mean, I think they've kind of gotten a little closer to Michigan because they've out-recruited them the past 2 years. But Ohio State has been killing it on the trail. But, you know, Michigan's bringing back probably the best duo in the country in the backfield.
They are arguably one of them, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to put them in the top 3 for me. And then they probably have their highest rated QB in Penn State history, maybe their best recruit ever. I'm
pretty sure Drew Aller is the best recruit in Penn State history. Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, Sean Clifford was there for 8 years, it felt like.
Dude.
So
he was living in the Penn State retirement home. Let's just be honest.
I mean, people kind of think he was the one holding them back.
I don't think he was the one holding them back. I just think that he was there and they didn't have any other better options. I mean, he just beat out the 33rd pick in the draft this year. That's why Will Levis left Penn State, because he couldn't beat Sean Sean Clifford, man. But
I'm gonna give you a stat right here, dude.
yeah, hit me.
So they are returning 75% production on their defense.
And do you know how good their defense was last year?
They were ranked 17th in the country.
Yeah, and I mean they have a corner. Man, what is that corner's name? Well, I can't remember that corner's name. Oh man,
I
I'm gonna
know
be
there was a
totally
dude that transferred in there, and he already sent him packing.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, they are absolutely loaded on the
They're
defensive side of the
ballers.
ball. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And
Um,
and just like you were getting to the running backs, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, those are two names to watch. I mean, because they're pro- they're in probably the best running back duo, like you're saying, in the country.
top
And
top 3. I mean,
yeah,
you could
and
argue for one, whatever.
yeah, yeah. And not only do they have the running backs, they have a tight end duo that's going to be able to punish you. That they'll be able to run two tight end sets, where they're able to run the ball. They'll be able to put both those tight ends out wide, and they're getting a transfer from Kent State. Probably not on many people's radar. Dante Cephas. In the
Yeah.
past 2 seasons at Kent State, this man has 130 catches for just under 2,000 yards. So they are loaded on offense. And it really, just like you were saying earlier, it really hinges on, can Drew Aller step up and be the guy that everyone thinks that he can be? And I think he has the potential to. And I think they're going to put him in a position at Penn State to really be able to excel. They won't put him in a position to fail. So I just think he has to step up, and they get Michigan at home late in the year in November. Happy Valley,
Yeah.
cold, wide out.
I was thinking, their key games. I was just kind of looking at, the 3 I like to circle. The first one is going to be the Iowa team. And I know people
That's
are
huge.
probably Iowa offense terrible. Well, they're going to look different this year. And
Mhm.
then next, the game we're going to is at Ohio State.
Yes,
And
sir.
then you just mentioned the Michigan game at home, the whiteout game. I'm thinking, man, I'm going to be honest with you. All they got to do is split those games.
Just split the Ohio State and split
Just
the
split
Michigan
them,
game.
man.
Yes,
Yeah,
dude.
just split them, dude. And you'll go to you'll go to the Big Ten championship if you get some luck, or you'll pull an Alabama in 2017 and get a bye week.
And you'll get to sit at home and walk into the playoff. That kind of depends what happens in the rest of the country. But if if you're Penn State and you're 11-1 and your only loss is on the road to Ohio State by 7,
Yeah.
you are not getting left out of the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. Just if they do lose to one, it needs to be a competitive game.
Yes, for
Can't
sure
get blown
needs to be.
out. Like last year, they kind of got beat by Michigan pretty bad. So
Really in the second half too. That
yeah,
that that that, that really got ugly in the second half.
but if you take care of business, go 2-0 in those games, then you'll be in the Big Ten championship game, and you're probably
Yeah.
gonna win that one.
Yeah, you'll probably be playing Wisconsin, maybe Iowa again, maybe Minnesota, maybe Nebraska if things go crazy.
Minnesota.
Minnesota. All right. Moving on to our next team that y'all can see down on the bottom little ticker. I really think that ticker's cool. Florida State Seminoles, man. Probably the most hyped team coming into 2023, man. And I think the hype is warranted, but not as
I do
much as
too.
everyone. Dude, they're the favorite to win the ACC right now. They are.
I don't like that,
They
but
have.
I think they're I mean, they're going to be really good. But
They're absolutely loaded, man. And they're returning 87% of their total production from last year. 80% on offense, 94% on the defense. They got Jared Verse back. Probably would have been a top 10 pick in this year's NFL draft. And they
essentially,
convinced him to stay. Goodness
essentially,
gracious.
essentially, they're bringing back the whole team. I mean, you a few players left, but essentially, you're bringing back everybody. I mean,
And
they're loaded.
and you're adding people in the portal.
I mean, they hosted Michigan State's Coleman this
Keon
weekend.
Coleman, yeah, that's something we can get to just a little bit later when we talk about
Ugh.
all these players, man. But Jordan Travis, he's the fuel to the fire. He is the fuel
Yeah.
to the fire down in Tallahassee. He played his best games against the worst competition, which usually happens, but against the best competition, man, he had his worst games, and they finished the season against Georgia Tech, Miami, Syracuse, Louisiana Lafayette, Florida, and Oklahoma, and all of those teams finished with a record below 500. And that was when you really saw Florida State get hot. That's when they
Mhm.
started culminating all this hype and this Florida State hype train, and they didn't play good teams to close out the season.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really blame their schedule. I mean, they kinda can't help
Yeah.
that they're in the ACC, you know, but,
Yeah.
their 3 losses were to their only ranked opponents.
Wake,
So,
NC State, and Clemson, and 2 of those were at home, right? Or were all 3 of those losses at home?
uh,
I th I think I for sure know NC S no, NC State was on the road. Wake and Clemson were both at home.
yeah, yeah.
So you lost 2 of those at home, and in those games, Jordan Travis threw for 55% completion. He has to be better. He has to be better in those
He
games against the big teams, man.
you you mentioned it, they're gonna go as he goes. I mean, he got hurt, a little banged up in one of his games last year, and it just wasn't the
Yeah,
same with the other quarterback in there.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
they're gonna only be as good as he is, and he has to stay healthy, and he's been injury prone since he's been there. I mean, he's
yeah,
gone down a
yeah,
bunch. So he's gonna need to really, bulk up in the weight room and, maybe slide a few more times and not take all those big
yeah,
hits.
yeah, man. Because
Um, but
he loves to get out there with them wheels and go.
I'll say this, Steve, they did a good job in the transfer portal if they wanted to make the jump.
Yeah,
They were 3rd overall, I would say, at all the teams in the transfer portal. Their high school
mhm,
recruiting isn't it where it needs to be. It's about 16th overall, which isn't terrible, but, like,
yeah,
when you wanna compete with Clemson and you wanna make the playoffs and win it and all, you
yeah,
kinda gotta be in the top 5.
yeah.
Um,
You really have to compete, but they've built to this year, and they've built this roster, they've developed this talent, and man, they're bringing in some absolute dogs in the transfer portal. Fintrell Cypress from Virginia, he's one of the top overall players in the transfer portal. He was a cornerback. They brought him in. Jaheim Bell, tight end from South Carolina, they brought him in. Other people that they brought in Kyle. They brought in Kyle Morlock from Shorter University. That's a Division II school from up in Rome here in the great state of Georgia. But he was a underrated talent in the transfer portal, and I think that he'll be a pretty big contributor. And just like you were saying, they hosted Keon Coleman today,
yeah.
and for y'all that don't know who Keon Coleman is, he is a wide receiver transfer from Michigan State, and he is now one of the top players in the portal. And if they add Keon Coleman to an already loaded offensive roster, man, I I just know you hate hearing that as a Florida fan, don't you?
Man, here's the thing, man, I got family that went there.
Yeah.
It's fun that they're good. I wish, it was fun last year that game was competitive, So,
I was an ultra fun game to watch. I
yeah, it's
absolutely loved it.
yeah. So, I think for them to make the jump though this year, I got some key games for them, and 2
Yeah,
of them are in the month of September. You
they
got
do. It's Mhm.
LSU to kick off the season and Clemson September 23rd, a few weeks later at
Week
Clemson.
4. That's a
Man, some
big
say they
game.
might go 0-2 in those games.
Dude, start off the season 2-2. You'll if Florida State starts off the season 2-2, you'll have people screaming, "Oh, Florida State was overhyped. Florida State was overhyped." Then they could
And they might
easily
win
still
out.
make
Win
then
out.
then they might get hot, win out,
My
go
next
on to
game
yeah.
is you're gonna talk about this team later, is Duke.
dude.
I know that probably, and we're not talking
I
about
am.
basketball. We're
We,
talking about
we
football. Duke.
football.
Yeah, I
Duke
think that's
football.
going to be
Yeah.
their third game. It's 2 or 3 weeks after the Clemson game, so we're going to see
Mhm.
if we're going to see if they are up and ready to go because that's going to be a tough game for them.
Dude, is it at Duke or is it
No, it's at
at
home. It's
Florida?
at home,
Oh, okay, okay.
but I don't really think they have a big home field advantage. So
You don't think they have a big home field? I think the Doak, when it's rocking, I think it's one of top 10, top 15. But if it's like a sleepy noon kickoff, they went out, they partied in Tallahassee the night before. I don't really think it's gonna be a
I wanted
crazy
to say
noon.
the Florida game's a key game, but I mean, anytime those big rivalry games are always key.
And plus that all depends. That's just so late in the season. There's no
Yeah.
way of predicting that. And it's what? It's the middle of May. There's no way to predict what's going to happen at the end of November. So, hey, Florida State, we hope you make the jump this year because we want to be right. And the last team that we want to see make the jump, quack, quack, the Oregon Ducks. I think they're going to be a big player on the West Coast this year. I really, really like the Ducks going into 2023.
Man, if you don't look at the Georgia game last year, they were a really good football team.
They were a phenomenal football team.
Yeah.
They
I
were,
think if they could have caught Georgia later in the year, I think Georgia still wins, but it is a closer football game.
dude. I think it's closer, but they still beat them by 27.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but it's not 49-3.
That game was ugly, but
Maybe 49-24. I give them
yeah.
I give them 21 more
Dude,
points.
but I'm really impressed with what Dan Lanning is doing out in Eugene because he's a young guy. Like
Yeah.
is he in his mid-30s? Like he is not an old guy. He is one of the younger coaches in college football, man. And
I think he's early 40s because
no, dude, he's in his
Lincoln
30s.
Riley's one of the youngest coaches.
Lincoln Riley's 39 and he's younger than Lincoln Riley.
Okay, so maybe he is in his mid 30s.
Yeah. And I mean, and him being so young, coming from the machine that's up in Athens, coming from
Well,
Georgia.
I'm gonna have to
And
tell you something. What Oregon's gonna have to improve on if they want to make the jump. They were
what?
123rd on third down on defense, so people
See,
converted a lot of third downs on them.
and with him being a defensive guy, I think throughout the past two recruiting cycles, and in 2022, they finished 13th overall. That was for first in the Pac 12. And then in 2023, they finished 9th overall. That was for second in the Pac 12. USC was 8th. So not far behind. And they've really addressed talent up front on the defensive front seven. And I think they're really going to address that this year. And they struggled down the stretch. They lost to Georgia, played a bunch of good teams out there in the Pac-12 and got hot. And then they kind of ran out of gas at the end of the year.
That you could kind of see it in that Washington game, and then definitely
Mhm.
the Oregon State game. You felt like they were better than Oregon State,
They
but
100% were.
their defense just kind of was done for. They were just
Yeah.
gassed, like you kind of said.
Yeah. They
And
just ran
we
out.
forgot to mention their quarterback,
Oh, Bo Nix.
the most important person that's coming back for them.
Dude, that was the biggest win of the offseason for them. I don't care who they went and got in the transfer portal. I don't care who they got as a high school recruit. Them convincing Bo Nix to not enter the NFL draft and to come back for his last season of college football
I love
was
his
a
quote.
massive win.
He recently said he was eager to go to the NFL, but he sat back and thought that, college football's fun and I want to come back.
Dude, it is the greatest sport on the face of the planet. And do you know he's fifth in Heisman odds?
Yes, I recently just saw that, and I'm not surprised because you mentioned to me last year about him.
Dude,
You were his dark horse, right? You and
Dude,
Cody,
yeah,
y'all were his
yeah.
dark
No,
horse? Yeah.
me and Logan. Me and Logan
Logan,
are
Auburn
me and
guys. Yeah.
Logan, Auburn guys. Though he claims I'm not an Auburn guy because I don't see through blue and orange glasses like he kinda does sometimes. I mean, we always said that when you looked at Bo Nix at Auburn, he suffered from a terrible offensive line. He was running for his life. He had no time to be able to set his feet. He had no time to be able to sit back there and be a quarterback. And then he played in a system, though he chose to play in that system. He really played in a system that really wasn't beneficial to him. And now with him at Oregon, he's a little more confident. He had that change of scenery, and he was really able to blossom into the five-star talent that he was out of high school and really be able to hone his skills and show it on the field.
For these people that don't respect the Pac-12, man, tell them some key games that Oregon might have this year.
Key games, they play USC. They play USC, and that's going to be an absolute massive game. I'm pulling Oregon's schedule up right now. They go to Texas Tech in week 2.
Yeah.
And that is one of my sleeper teams, Texas Tech. We can talk about them at another time on another show. Oregon goes to Washington. That's a tough game. That's sneakily one of the hardest places to play in college football. They go to Utah, and then they play USC. And then to close out the season, they play Oregon State. So they play the other 4 best teams in the Pac-12. So I'm really looking at can they win on the road at Washington and at Utah? And if you're able to see them win those games, then can they improve off of last year and not run out of gas at the end of the year? And I think that they have a legit shot to not run out of gas, man.
I might be wrong about this. I think USC is the only team that can lose one game and still make the playoffs. I think these other schools like Oregon,
I think
they need to
Oregon
go
could lose a
undefeated.
game. I
But
think
you're
Oregon could lose a game.
just, the Pac-12 just doesn't get the respect that it maybe deserves now.
I don't think it deserves it now. I think it started to deserve it last year because
Yeah.
they had such good. I think they were the 3rd best conference last year, and something that you have to start thinking about: USC and UCLA, they're leaving. They're saying adios. They're
Yeah.
going. So if this is the best time to step up for Oregon, not only for Oregon, but for the Pac-12, because if you have Oregon, but if they're able to make the jump, they're able to win the conference and they're able to make the playoffs, you would be able to say we have a playoff contender and
Yeah.
they didn't come out of Southern California.
I think what a lot of people, you guys might not know is the Pac-12 is kind of pretty close to being gone.
That's what a
Just
lot of people think.
with USC and UCLA leaving, they're going to the Big Ten. And if Oregon can somehow pull this out, this will be huge. And then they can maybe pull a big TV deal together with somebody. That would
I mean,
really, really help the Pac-12 to stay together.
yeah, I think it would help. I don't think it'd be their saving grace, but but it sure as heck wouldn't hurt them.
No, I think it would it would definitely get the needle moving. Because
Yeah,
right
some.
now it's not looking good for them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. So those are the teams that we want to see make the jump. We might revisit this throughout the summer. And just see how it goes. And on to our next segment, teams we want to see right the ship. Teams we want to see get going in the right direction. Your program's been down. Your program's been in the dump. You might have barely made a bowl game. You probably haven't been making bowl games.
I appreciate that, man.
Hey, man, all love for the team in Gainesville. And that's who we're talking about first, the Florida Gators. Will,
I'm gonna
what
try not to go on a rant here.
what do your Florida Gators need to do to get the ship
Well,
going right?
I'm gonna tell you this. Last year was an up and down year.
To
We
say the
got
least.
to we got to witness probably their best game that they played all year, the first
Mhm.
game of the season against Utah, which was awesome. Man, defensively they've got to improve. I mean, you were
Yes.
97th in total defense last year. You were almost last in third down converting on defense. So you couldn't get off
Mhm.
the field.
Dude, which was something when we went to the Utah game last year,
Yeah.
we
I'm
we we thought that was going to kill them. They could not get off the field to save their lives.
We talked about it.
Yeah.
Brought in new defensive coordinator.
Mhm.
Previous only 1 year defense coordinator. Philip Tony, he left for Arizona for the NFL.
Mhm.
We bring in new defensive coordinator Austin Armstrong from Southern Miss.
Yep.
Young guy. He's only 29 years old, my
And
age.
do you know that there was buzz that he might there might have been interest with the Alabama defensive coordinator job, but just since he was so young, it kind of turned Saban off.
Yeah, I expect big things, man. When you hear him talk, he sounds like Kirby Smart. I mean,
Preaching.
he talks just like him. They kind of sound alike, so it kind of makes
Mhm.
me it excites me a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
I think we finished 13th in recruiting this year. It could have been a little better. We had the quarterback. Everybody knows the contract, the numbers that we offered a quarterback. Who knows if that's true or not? But that since
Face
losing
no way.
him, it it was a top 10 class, but losing him, it went down to 13th. But
Yeah.
we got a bunch of guys in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
We kind of got some DLs, OLs, linebackers was a huge need.
Mhm.
So I think we kind of answered had a few position needs. Now, are they going to be able to step up and play? Because they're going to have to play right away. All these guys are.
They're gonna have to.
And then we brought in Graham Mertz from Wisconsin.
The
Uh,
biggest
uh,
question mark on that team is really not even the biggest because we
no.
know that he's at least able to be somewhat serviceable. I think the biggest question mark is can y'all be consistent on the offensive line?
Yeah, the
Because
offensive line, man, that was our strength last year.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, that
and
was one thing. If we could go into a game, I knew we were going to be able to run the ball.
yes.
And surprisingly, the only one game we couldn't run the ball in was against Vandy. worst
Shout out
defense,
Vandy.
worst defense in the SEC. We couldn't run against them.
Shout
So
out Bo. Anchor
yeah,
down.
yeah. So I think for us to go in the right direction, for me, I want to see us beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. Kentucky,
Vanderbilt, Missouri,
Vanderbilt, Missouri.
Kentucky.
Yes, all those
You
teams.
you really can't even say South Carolina going into this year.
No, you can't say South Carolina because it's in South Carolina and
Yeah.
they're loaded. But just beat the teams you're supposed to beat and then make it to a bowl game because the 24 recruiting class
It's loaded.
it's going to be special. It's turning
They
out to be special. Give Coach Napier some time.
Mhm.
I promise you, there's some stuff going on down there in year one that not a lot of people know about,
Yes.
that nobody will ever know about.
Which is
Just
really common with a bunch of programs, but whenever you get a new coach in and he has rot in the program from the coach that was left behind, and like everyone has to get behind that coach, and that really takes a lot of time. And that's just what the Facebook fan, what the average casual fan really doesn't understand. That they just see what's going on in Tuscaloosa, they see what's going on in
well,
Athens, and
it
and
it doesn't help when USC and Lincoln Riley goes in with year one
Sonny
and
Dykes and TCU make the national championship game year one.
people can't judge. Florida fans can't be like, well, look what they're doing. Well, we're not. We're different.
Yeah.
Our program is. We got a long way to go, man, and just trust his process. I trust his process.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think he's a great coach. I love his recruiting. I love what he's doing. Just be patient. Look, we're gonna have some down years. The
Yes.
schedule is tough, and if you think this schedule's tough, do not go look at the 24 schedule because it gets worse.
It gets the Florida schedule in 2024.
It's
I
brutal.
mean,
I
dude,
mean,
it is terrible, but that can be a topic for another day.
yeah, I'm just
I
saying, be
mean,
patient
goodness
with them,
gracious.
man. And I know God, look at that comment from Andrew.
Oh, let me see what he said. Let's be honest. Oh, come on. Come
Come,
on,
Andrew.
Andrew
Give them
Caraway.
some respect, man. But anyways, let me stop this Florida rant. The key games for me this year for them is honestly in the first month. How are they going to look? How's Graham Mertz going to look? We start out with Utah in Utah.
Mhm.
2 weeks later, we have Tennessee at home, and then another 2 weeks
That's a
we go
big
to
game.
we go to Kentucky. So man, if they can somehow finish 2-1 in those, I think they could
That
maybe
that'd be
may,
huge.
maybe win 7 games. But God,
Dude,
you can't go 0-3
this
in those
this
games.
sounds bad when you're speaking about Florida because of all the potential that program has. Saying 7 games is a good season.
I know, I'm so
That's
sad that they're on this list that you sent me.
dude, I had to put them because I want to see them right the ship, man. Them being good and them being a power player in the East again, man,
Well,
that would be awesome.
my buddy Cody said it best. We're a sleeping giant, man. It just takes the right puzzle pieces, to get it woke up.
Yeah.
So hopefully
Yeah.
Billy Napier can get it rolling, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, and moving down about 7 or 8 hours south, what about the Miami Hurricanes, man? They were one of my most disappointing teams in 2022. Well, 2020, yeah, 2022. They were really disappointing. You had Cristobal there in his first season. Really didn't pan out. They went 5-7. Tyler Van Dyke didn't have the season that I thought he would. He was one of my Heisman dark horses going into last year. But man, the Josh Gaddis experiment down there last season was a complete flop. And he won the Broyles Award in 2021 at the University of Michigan. And then he just goes down there and flops.
I'm gonna say this, man. I think it's kind of the same thing with Florida. There was stuff going on down there that we have no idea about, locker room
Yeah.
stuff. You
Lots of
know,
rot in the program,
yeah,
players. Yeah.
flipping the roster, getting your guys in there.
Mm-hmm.
And man, one thing they just need to improve on to help Tyler Van Dyke is their rushing offense. Man, they were 96th in
Yeah.
the country last year.
Ugh,
Just got to be
gross.
more consistent on offense and find some balance. I mean, that's
That
just going to help your quarterback.
and I think with them bringing in Shannon Dawson, the offensive coordinator from the Houston Cougars last year, I think they will be able to spread the ball out more so they are able to run just a little bit better.
Man, we know they got athletes down there, dude. They got
Yeah.
some guys. Just utilize them, man.
Yeah.
Um, I think for them last year they were so disappointing is they didn't beat the teams they were supposed to beat too.
They
I mean, you
lost to
lose
Middle
to
Tennessee.
I know. That's
They got
terrible,
blown
man.
out by Middle Tennessee.
It's embarrassing, dude.
Man, and then when you look at all their stats in 2022, all of every single one of their team stats was in the bottom half to the bottom third of the ACC.
Yeah.
What I would say last year was the worst conference in all of Power 5. They were at the bottom of it.
Yeah. They were terrible.
Yeah.
So in one of our comments, Andrew just brought up is we should bring up is Miami has a massive NIL issue as well, which this will affect their recruiting for their 24 class. For
Yes.
people that don't know, they started an NIL and it's like a stock option. And it's terrible right now. I think it
It's
started out as like
tanking.
$1 and it's like at 53 cents or something. So
Yeah.
it's the last I checked it. So it is they need to figure something out how they're going to do their NIL situation.
Yeah. That probably wasn't the best idea to base it around a stock in a very volatile economic time.
No.
That isn't the smartest thing.
Hey, their head booster thinks he's smarter than everybody else. So he can do whatever he wants. He was going to ruin Miami recruiting because last year they did incredible. They finished what they finished like seventh. They finished seventh in the 23 class, which is really
which
good.
was which was for first in the ACC. Yeah,
Yeah. Which is, I
and
mean,
them being down in South Florida, they're able to get all these kids that want to come back home. Like
you trip over them. You literally walk outside and you trip over them. That's how much
yeah,
talent they have down there.
which is just ridiculous.
Yeah,
There is no reason they shouldn't be successful.
They missed out on a few guys. They were really close to a top 3 class.
Mm-hmm.
They missed out on Jaden Rashada. They missed out on the corner that went to Colorado.
Cormani McClain.
Yeah, they missed out on him, and then they missed out on one more kid. Dude, that class, I mean, it's a good class, but it was almost really special.
It could have been the jump start to something really special down there, just like you said. Man,
yeah.
And the last team that we want to see right the ship, so Oklahoma Sooners, a team that has no business being in here. Dude,
when
they have a win total of 9 this year.
When you sent me this and Oklahoma was on this list, I said, "Are you sure we don't need to put them on the other list?"
The only reason I put them on this list is because they have a new head coach, which so does Florida, so does Miami. All of these teams' coaches are in their second year, which when you look at their first year, they all kind of had to readjust. And now this year, we just want to see the wind hit the sails and start going in the right direction, man. Their offense at Oklahoma last year was the best in the Big 12.
Yeah.
But their defense, dead last. And you're in a conference with Kansas.
They were 122nd in total defense in the country.
And they have Brent Venables as their head coach.
But what was Lincoln Riley known for at Oklahoma?
Not having a very good defense. Yes. Yeah. So
scheme wise, I think scheme wise, it's totally different from Brent Venables and the previous coaching staff. So 100%. That had something to do with it. And then, he had to get his guys in there. He's getting his guys in there. Dude, they recruited really well. They were fourth in the 23 class.
His guys in there. They're definitely getting his guys in there.
Doing really well in the portal. I mean, people want to go to Oklahoma and play. And they brought back Dylan Gabriel this year. So
they have Jackson Arnold waiting in the wings, true freshman quarterback out of the state of Texas. I think he's gonna be the future there. But just like you were saying, they have recruited their butts off in the past 2 classes in 2022 and in 2023. They finished top 8 in high school recruiting and in the portal. So they've kind of reloaded this roster with talent they can curate and talent they can develop, and then talent that can come in and play right away.
Dude, let me tell you this stat about Oklahoma that shocks me that you sent me, dude. They've only had 5 seasons where they've had less than 10 wins since 2000.
They have dominated.
Dude,
look,
that is unbelievable.
This might upset some Texas fans, but you think you're Oklahoma. Texas thinks that they're Oklahoma when they're kind of Oklahoma's little brother. When it comes to the football field. When it comes to the football field. So this isn't on the rundown, but who do you think will be more suited to come into the SEC? Because we do know Oklahoma and Texas, they're both coming to the SEC and starting in 2024. Who do you think is most set up to jump in the best conference in the country and compete off the start?
Oh my gosh. My heart wants to say Texas just because Sark's recruited so well. He's coached in the SEC. He has that experience. But to be honest with you, the only thing that's going to hold him back is if Arch Manning can be what he's destined to be, what everybody thinks he's destined to be.
Because some people think Arch Manning stinks.
I don't think he stinks.
I don't think he stinks either. I just think he didn't play great high school talent. He has all of the tools that he needs to be successful. And I think he's with the perfect developer of quarterbacks with Sark to develop him.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I think it just depends on which one, like what schedule they get and
Yeah.
how they group us and stuff like that. Who kind of comes in and successful? Because when they did this 10 years ago or whatever with A&M and Missouri, Missouri got on the East and they got lucky, and the East just kind of went down, and Missouri got kind of decent, and they just won the
Came
East
in
2 years in
hot.
a row.
Came in
So
on fire.
which I think both of them will be on the same. They'll be grouped together. So I
Yeah.
don't know if that would necessarily be a factor or not, but I don't know. I think Texas probably could come in and be successful early on. They've recruited well. They got the pieces around it. They got SEC type ball players everywhere. I think Brent Venables is getting those type of players around.
But it might just take a little bit more time.
Let's give them another recruiting class, and then they'll be
Yes.
ready to go. But
Yes, sir.
they better try to win a conference championship this year, because might be a
It's
while
gonna
till you
take
get
them
you
a
another
while
one.
in the SEC. Yes, sir. We play it a little different down
Yeah,
here in the South.
yes, it means a little more to us.
Well, you know that I am fascinated when it comes to sports gambling. I don't gamble because it's not legal in Georgia.
Yeah.
But when it is legal, I will dabble responsibly because I am fascinated by the numbers. I am fascinated by how they move when money gets put. I love predicting what lines are going to open at. And man, so our very last segment of the show is future lines. I'm going to try to make some of y'all some money out there this summer and this fall with
I want
these
to say
future
this.
lines.
We
What's
have a
up?
buddy who is
Cody.
really good at this. Yes,
and
Cody
and
Anderson.
he will be on this show to help us, and we're also gonna have a little competition when it comes to these lines once the actual games drop, and the loser's gonna eat the world's hottest chip, folks.
It's probably
and
gonna be
it's
me. So
and it's probably gonna be Will, man. So just getting into some of these future lines, I have 3 for you. 1 is a spread, and 2 are over under on win totals. The first one that I wanna look at, I was on it before it moved, but this is a futures line. Washington -10 at Michigan State, man. Michigan State's passing defense last year was towards the bottom of FCS football. And there's 131 teams, and they were like 126, something like that. Don't quote me. And then you have Washington. They're returning the second highest odds quarterback to win the Heisman, Michael Penix Jr.
not a lot
Absolute
of people
baller last
know.
year.
Not a lot of people know how good he is,
Dude,
because when
just because he played on the West Coast, and
yeah,
then he started out at Indiana, got hurt, moved out to Washington, reunited with his offensive coordinator from Indiana, Kalen DeBoer, and they have created an offensive monster out in Washington this year. They have 2 receivers returning that had 1,000 yards last year.
Yeah.
So, and with corners leaving Michigan State, the only thing Michigan State has going for them in this game is it's at home. So that's already baked into the line. And this opened at -8 towards Washington, and I loved it then. And then it jumped up to -10 once those transfers left. But I love it even more, man. I could see this getting ugly really, really quick.
Yeah, Michigan State had an overhaul of transfer portals happen here recently. Their quarterback left. He's going to Auburn.
Their
Wide
best wide
receiver
receiver
still,
left.
yeah, wide receiver. He's still hunting where he wants to
Keon
go.
Coleman.
So they did have a corner getting the portal, but he's back. He's on return.
Okay.
So I see why this line jumped. It definitely would have been better to made more money hopping on it
At
at 8.
8?
Yeah,
Dude,
yeah.
I loved it at 8. I mean, as soon as it dropped, I sent you a message. I sent Cody a message. I was like, "This at 8. This is free money at
I
8."
think
But it's at 10 now, and I still absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. It's in week 2, I believe, so it won't be cold there, so
yeah,
the offense won't be a problem having to throw the ball in the cold. So I absolutely love that line at -10. And our first over under, we
oh,
mentioned them
these
earlier.
I can
We
do these. I
mentioned
like these.
okay, yeah. We mentioned them earlier in the show, the Duke Blue Devils over under 6.5. Over
I
under 6.5.
love I love the over right here.
I love the over right here. They return 82% of their offense.
Yeah.
They went 9-4 last year, and they scored 33 points per game. So if you're returning that much from an offense that was already really good, and they're bringing back their quarterback, Riley Leonard, I don't see why they can't win 7 games with this schedule. It's not an easy schedule. They play Clemson at home to open the season. They play Notre Dame at home. They go to FSU. They go to UNC. They go to Louisville. And for some reason, the ACC loves screwing their teams over, and they are going to UConn. UConn. So I think they could
It's a W.
still lose. Dude, UConn was sneaky good last year from what they've been. They freaking made a bowl last year.
I don't care.
Dude, but still, it's a sneaky game. So, I mean, they can still afford to lose Clemson and to Notre Dame at home, and and if they go 1 and
It's gonna be
2
close.
between,
Now that I'm looking at their schedule, it's gonna be close.
it'll be close, but I'm a believer in the
I
Blue
think they
Devils.
can get a 7. I think they can get a 7.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
I would love this if it was at 6. Oh my gosh, I would be eating this up if it was at 6.
Man, that would be nice,
Absolutely,
dude.
dude.
Wish it was at
6.
5.5. I'd find a way to somebody put some money on it.
I don't think Vegas is that stupid to put them at 5.5, but I think the Duke Blue Devils are going to go over 6.5 wins this fall. And lastly, a team we've already touched on, the Texas Longhorns, over under 9.5. I know you love the Longhorns this year, and for every reason we gave earlier, give me the Horns over 9.5 this fall. They play Alabama on the road week 2. We already know College Game Day is going to be there. Probably they're stupid if they don't go. We have
This
already
might be
touched
the
on
most talented team in the Big 12. I
it.
mean, they've
It
recruited.
is the
They've had the
most
best
talented team in the
recruiting
Big 12.
class. They've had the best recruiting classes in the Big 12 the past 3 years or 2 years,
Mhm.
whatever it is. I mean, if you can split that Alabama-Oklahoma game, then you're probably gonna finish 11-1.
Yes, because you still play Kansas State, who's a really
Yeah.
good team, but you get them at home. You have to go to Waco, and then you have to play Baylor. You have to go
Yeah, you
to
mentioned at Baylor earlier. That's a sneaky game,
sneaky
maybe like a
game.
11 a.m. game for them. They
They
just
so just in the month of November, they play Kansas State at home. They go to TCU, and
yeah.
they play Texas Tech. I think all of those teams will be top half teams in the Big 12. So they have a decently tough November, but just like we said, they return 85% of their production from last year. They're getting Isaiah Nayer back. He's a stud. They're getting A.D. Mitchell. He's a stud. So I think Georgia this year, not Georgia. Why did I say Georgia? Because A.D. Mitchell came from Georgia.
I'm gonna talking about the
I
dogs.
the dogs. That's from Mr. Johnny. The dogs.
Oh my god.
Oh, but I think Texas, man. I think Texas goes over 9.5 this season. What a first episode,
I,
man.
I know. That was fun, dude. I've been reading.
This is awesome,
I've been reading all the comments, man. I got a
dude.
super fan, and Sam Thrower wants ESPN to pick this up.
Dude, my Uncle Sam,
Yeah,
he's a
your uncle.
diehard supporter of anything I've ever done, and I love him. And
I
he is
like it,
awesome.
man. Well,
Dogs
Emily
back.
just
Oh, I'm gonna have to go get my wife. Dogs back to back to back.
I was having fun until I just saw that.
Dude,
God.
I'm gonna have to go throw up in the toilet just thinking about that.
Let's see. Hunter, my man Gus, and Will. We went to 3rd grade together. If you
Hunter
remember me.
Buquay, my first best friend, man. He was my neighbor back in Hawthorne Circle. Go Dogs! Will, you gonna have to go get your wife now. What? Well, we married.
Yeah,
two
if people
awesome
don't know,
women.
we married Georgia fans, unfortunately.
So
we
we have me an Auburn fan, Will a Florida fan, and we married into a diehard Georgia family. That's the only mistake I think our wives have ever made is that they're Georgia fans, man. Goodness gracious.
Well, good for them right now, I guess.
Yeah, dude, they're stinking living it up. Living it up.
Enjoy it.
All right. Well, I think we're going to call that the show, man. I would love it if y'all would like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Get us going on there. And, man, just share. Share this
Share our
podcast.
post on Instagram. Try to get
The
people to
college
follow
football
us.
experience.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right,
man.
Well.
Appreciate you
Well,
guys. We really appreciate
yes.
it, man. This was awesome. Thank y'all.
This was awesome. And we will be back soon with another episode of the Extra Points podcast for the college football experience. Again, I am Gus, and that is Will. And have a good night, everyone.
See ya.